Lala, 20th July 1984. About an hour after Aidan leaves her at home alone, Lala stands barefoot in the dark doorway of his house in a scratchy white nightgown she has stolen from Wilma, assuring herself, despite the obvious, that everything will be okay. The salty air was still when she opened the door, and sweat still beads her face when she slips her feet into Aidan's old sneakers and grabs hold of the inner soles with her toes, worrying about her descent to the gray velvet blur of beach so far beneath her. She has been cautioned not to climb or descend the stairs on her own in her condition, and Aidan has been instructed to build a banister to steady her, but they've both ignored the good sense of the fishermen who sometimes help her up them with her groceries. The 25 cement steps to the ground remain just as treacherous as the day she first climbed them, 18 months earlier, with a string bag stretched into the shape of everything she owned. They are perhaps more treacherous, she reasons, with a belly the size of a beach ball disrupting her balance. So she leans on the weather-beaten wood of the house on her left and shrinks away from the sheer drop to her right.
Hi, welcome to Brown Girl Book Lover. I'm Leslie Ann Murray. I'm really excited today because I'm interviewing Cherie Jones of How the One-Armed Sister Sweeps Her House. This is a great title and a really beautiful book. I'm going to give you a brief info about Cherie. Cherie Jones is a writer, lawyer, and a mom of four. Her short stories have variously been published in Pank, Condensa, Electra, The Feminist Wire, and broadcast on BBC Radio 4. She's a fellow awardee of the Vermont Studio Center and completed her MA with distinction at Sheffield Hallam University, where she was awarded the Archie Markham Award and the M.A. Heath Prize. Cherie's debut novel is How the One-Armed Sister Sweeps Her House. Cherie, welcome to Brown Girl Book Lover.
Thank you, Leslie Ann. Thanks so much for having me. I am so excited to be here.
As soon as I saw this book and then I saw your face, and I was just like, oh, I need to like meet her and I need to interview her. So I'm so thrilled that you're here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Tell us a little bit about your novel.
So How the One-Armed Sister Sweeps Her House is a story about a woman called Lala who works as a hair braider, braiding hair, usually of tourists, on the beach in Barbados. And when we meet Lala at the beginning of the story, it's the night on which she gives birth to her first child. Unfortunately, that same night, there's a murder further along the beach. A wealthy white tourist is murdered in gruesome circumstances. And How the One-Armed Sister Sweeps Her House is really the story of how those two events are connected. And while we take that journey with Lala, we learn a lot about race and color and poverty and class in Barbadian society in the mid-80s.
And how did you come up with the concept for this novel?
So, as with most of my stories, I basically Lala's character just popped into my head one evening on the bus when I was living in the UK, and started to talk to me and told me a part of the story. I do feel as if I receive some of my stories, and that was what happened in this case. So that's how I got the inspiration for it. Lala told me part of her story and I was just hooked. I was compelled to just write it after that and do the best that I could with it. So that's how it came about.
It's funny that you were in the UK on a bus, very different from Barbados, and this very distinct, Bajan character and imagery came to you. Were you like nostalgic? Were you missing home?
Oh my gosh, of course. One of the interesting things about being away from home and being in this, big metropolitan city was that things that I wouldn't, it was almost as if home just went into very sharp relief in my mind. It was like every little thing about being at home I remembered. Now, I've always had a love affair with the beach. Um, but I'd find myself daydreaming about going to the beach, and yet still when I was at home, I'd take it for granted. I wouldn't necessarily sort of make sure I go to the beach on any particular day in the weekend. So yes, home was just very, very sharp in my mind, especially during winter.
Many foreigners tend to view the Caribbean as paradise, while those who live on the island have a very different point of view. Why it was so important to highlight these discrepancies in your novel?
Again, that had to do with the story that I was telling. But what I will say in writing that story, you know, the beach really is the place in Barbados where all the different elements of society, all of the classes, all the distinctions that shouldn't really mean a lot but affect us anyway, all of those things collide. Everybody wants to experience the beach, whether it's a source of income, whether it's just, a vacation. A tourist is coming here to experience that aspect of the island, whether it's people hustling on the beach, So to me, the beach was a really good setting for what happens in the novel. And I think it was important to try to demonstrate why these characters might have the kind of pressures that they have and have to make the types of decisions that they do. So to me, it was important to show the difference, not only because it exists. I mean, one of the things about this novel is that people say, how do people feel about you sort of airing Barbados' dirty laundry? This is paradise. This is what's on the postcards, and you're writing this tale that is not so, not so beautiful. But that's reality.
Okay, so Disha Philia, she reviewed your book in the New York Times, and she said like the main culprit in this book is patriarchy itself. Can you talk more about this?
Yes, so definitely the patriarchal structure of I don't know the world, but certainly there are some aspects of patriarchy that to me are especially um, visible in the Caribbean when it comes to gender positioning and the role of women. And this is something that I would have observed, since I was, a small child in Barbados. There's things that I would have observed before I even knew what feminism meant or what patriarchy meant. It was just these things were obvious, and I had to ask myself some questions about how I would become the version of myself that I wanted to be within those parameters. And in a lot of ways, that is what the story is about. And that is what the title refers to. It's very much grounded in the domestic sphere. But it also kind of says, if these are the particular parameters within which women are expected to function, because you're from the Caribbean, so you know that one of the ways we judge our girls is your ability to sweep a house. You gotta be able to keep a clean house. You're laughing, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you can't keep a clean house, you're not making the grades. So you know exactly what I mean. So it's grounded in that domestic sphere, but it says, if you are a woman within those parameters and your society is judging you according to those standards, and you are not particularly inclined to self-realize within those parameters, or you perhaps don't have the ability for one reason or another, how do you manage? How do you survive? How do you excel within those parameters? So I hope that by the end of the novel, what the reader might be doing is questioning the relevance of those parameters as opposed to, how women succeed within them. Because, the point is it's just not relevant in the society that we should be striving towards.
I agree. And it's funny because I feel like in the Caribbean, especially like in the Caribbean community in Brooklyn, women are the paramount. Women are controlling everything. Women are getting the green cards and bringing up cousins, uncles, everything. But at the same time, they're showing control, but they're adhering to these like paradigms, these patriarchal paradigms, which is limiting them. And
That's
then
the same thing here. That is the same thing, in the Caribbean. We do have, I think we say that a lot of our families are matrifocal and have been that way historically. They may be headed by women in one sense, but the woman doesn't really have the power in the way that males as head of the household do. So it's a very complex reality for Caribbean women in a lot of ways, but that is true.
Cherie. Just sometimes I get so like excited I can't even speak.
No, that's fine. That's great. That's fine. That's amazing.
Thank you so much for joining me on Brown Girl Book Lover. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with me and your novel with me. And I'm excited to just continue to read your work and support you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Leslie. It's been wonderful to be here. I was so excited about this opportunity to speak to you today, and it was just as I hoped it would be. So thank you.
Okay.